I hadn't meant to overhear that night. But fate has a cruel way of pushing truths into the light when you'd rather keep living in the dark. It was close to midnight when I got back from the store, clutching a plastic bag with a bottle of cheap red wine and a couple of frozen dinners. The kind you buy when you're not just short on time, but short on hope too. Meals that taste like a warning sign, whispering that the marriage they're meant for is already cracking at the edges. The second I opened the door, I heard her voice. Low. Sharp. Wounded. I can't stand being with him, Sarah. I feel trapped. He's like a ghost I can't escape. My lungs froze halfway through a breath. The words landed like a blade, sliding in clean and merciless. I wasn't meant to hear them, but I did. And in an instant, everything that had seemed off, all the doubts I'd tried to bury, finally made sense. Marriage starts like a firework. Promises whispered at midnight, kisses that leave you dizzy, laughter over things so small they'd sound ridiculous to anyone else. But then slowly the fire burns down. The embers cool into routine. Long commutes. Quiet dinners. Watching them turn away from you in bed, inch by inch, until there's an ocean between your backs. I met Claire when we were young and restless, barely out of school, chasing dreams we weren't sure we'd ever catch. Her eyes once lit up like I was the reason she breathed. I lived for that spark, but somewhere along the way, it dulled. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was me. She drifted. I became predictable. Same job. Same dinners. Same man. And apparently not enough. Standing in the shadow of that hallway, listening to her confess how much she resented me, felt like my chest was clamped in a vice. I could have barged in, demanded explanations, screamed, begged. But I didn't. Instead, I slipped upstairs, threw a few shirts and jeans into a duffel bag, and walked out without a note or a sound. She wanted space. I gave her more than she asked for. The motel I landed in was a monument to forgotten lives. Peeling yellow paint. The stench of mildew woven into the walls. A mattress that sank like quicksand. I sat there on the lumpy bed, staring at the tacky wallpaper, wondering how long I'd been nothing but a shadow in her life. By morning, my phone buzzed with call after call. Texts. Voicemails. Please. Where are you? We need to talk. Please come home. I almost laughed. The woman who just hours earlier said she couldn't stand me was suddenly desperate at my absence. I let her stew in that silence. Let her taste what it felt like to lose someone who had always stayed. 2 days later, she found me. She stood in the doorway of that dingy room. Hair unbrushed, face hollow, voice trembling. Why did you leave? She whispered. A bitter chuckle escaped me. Do I really need to explain? Her lips parted, but all she managed was, you weren't supposed to hear that. That was her defense. Not regret for saying it, just regret that I'd caught her truth. Something in me broke then, clean and final. I stepped aside and let her in. She stood, refusing to sit, fidgeting like a child caught in a lie. Was it true? I asked. The pause lasted just long enough. Long enough to confirm what her silence screamed louder than words. For once, Claire, the woman who always had an answer ready, was speechless. She scrambled for excuses, anything to pull me back into orbit. But I was already gone. Not from the room, but from her. I'd left the moment those words slipped from her mouth. I was upset, she stammered finally, frustration leaking into her tone. I didn't mean it like that. I shook my head. You don't spit out something like that unless it's been simmering for a while. Her eyes filled with tears. I love you, but don't. My voice cut through hers. I don't need the but. I already know how this story ends. She broke then, sobbing into her hands. For years, I'd been the one questioning my worth, wondering why the woman I loved seemed to slip further and further away. But now it was her turn to feel the hollow ache of losing someone who had finally stopped fighting. I never went back. The divorce was bitter, but my healing wasn't. Somewhere along the way, I realized the hardest part hadn't been leaving. The hardest part had been staying, clinging to a love that had already turned to dust. Claire reached out a few times afterward, trying to resurrect what had long since died. But I had moved on. I'd found something far greater than her half-hearted affection. I'd found peace. And eventually, I found someone new. Someone whose eyes held the kind of light that made me feel like I carried the stars inside me.